When comedians are asked if they act the same way in real life than the way they do when they perform, they usually say something like, "Yeah, I'm kind of the same, but it's not as crazy," and that's true for me as well. Like whenever I show my videos to people who know me well, they always say, "This is exactly what kind of video I think you'd make, Steve." And this channel has always been eccentric, just like how I've always been eccentric myself. When I was in elementary school, I wouldn't play kickball like the other kids at recess. I would go to the top of the slide and I would commentate on the kickball games like I was in like a booth or something. And I've always been an independent person, kind of like that, doing stuff like that. The type of person who goes off and does my own thing. Even from a really young age, like when I was in preschool, during playtime, I wouldn't like do what other kids were doing. I would just get like a little Matchbox card, just lay my head down, and just push it back and forth, and just lay my head down, and just relax that way. And that was kind of weird. My preschool teacher actually thought I was autistic because of that. Um, my eccentric personality and independent nature made me kind of an outsider in my tiny Christian school. This made me a target for sniper bullying. For instance, the cool kids would get me to do something humiliating or against the rules, like sacrificing a goat. And I would agree to do it, thinking I would be a part of the cool kids if I did it, but in reality, it was all just for the entertainment of the cool kids, and then I would end up getting humiliated or in trouble or both. But all that kind of numbed my feeling of embarrassment, my fear of embarrassment. So that was what my school life was like for the 11 and a half years I was in Christian schools. But that wasn't the only problem that I had. The social, the school was like really restrictive socially. Like you would only get grouped with like the same 15 kids, and that's who you were with in all your classes for the entire year. And extracurriculars weren't that great either. There weren't a lot of sports you could play, and there was not great in the arts program. There was a not a so great theater program, and and if you wanted to play sports, you would have to pay $150 if you wanted to play. And and also the people at the school were super snobby. It was a private Christian school, very upper class people, and I'm coming from a middle working class family, and so when schools don't have a great social structure, they'll try to make it up with clubs. Well, my school failed at that too. You could only join one club, and it met first thing Wednesday morning for 30 minutes. It was only one time slot, and the club selection was one of these pagan rituals. It was very strange. It was like a weird pagan political convention thing. So we would all get in the cafeteria, and the club sponsors would tell us about their club, and then the students would applaud according to how much they wanted to be in the club, like it was the State of the Union or something. Then you got a little sheet of paper and you marked which clubs you wanted to join from 1 to 4. And so 1 was the one you wanted to be in the most, and 4 was the one you wanted to be the fourth most. And if the club that you wanted the most fills up, well, that's too bad, Chad. Another one of the pagan rituals was this Monday speaker. So they would have someone come in from the community who was like a philanthropist or an evangelical, and they would tell you about whatever. It was something nobody cares about. I couldn't even remember what they talked about writing the script. I could make an entire video about the pagan rituals of private school, but I'm getting off track. Oh, one more thing. One good thing that the school did is that, every year in the spring there was a very nice trip that you would go on, all expenses paid from like fourth grade to eighth grade. You go to places like Space Camp, Chicago, wherever. But before every field trip, you got the speech. You are ambassadors of our school. Do not embarrass us. And it's kind of stuff like that is what they said. So we've talked about the pagan philosophy of Christian schools. Let's talk about the philosophy of TV Steve. So the description of the channel reads postmodern existential absurd humor for the 21st century. Let's break that down piece by piece. So in the 21st century, a machine will attain consciousness. So people are gonna start thinking, if machines can have thoughts of their own, is there any value to human thoughts? Well, I'll save you the thinking. There isn't gonna be any. So people are gonna have to do some more thinking. So there's going to be two movements. There's going to be the nihilists and the existentialists. The nihilists will say that there is no value in human thought, and then they'll just do what nihilists usually do, which is sit around and be depressed. The other movement, the existentialists, a lot of them will try to find the world just beautiful as it is, filtered by our senses and injected to our consciousness, because the consciousness is all we can ever know and understand. And the state of mind is all that matters when it comes, and that will apply to art too. And that's where absurd humor comes in, because absurdism, the funny thing about absurdism isn't the content itself, but where it came from. And that's also a part of how the channel is an extension of my personality, where it comes from. It comes from me. And the absurdism, it's not funny that, there's a toucan invasion. It's funny because someone thought of that. And it's funny to think about how they came up with that.